What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the HnH Podcast. I am your co-host, Hamza Rana, joined by my older brother, Huzaifah Rana. We had a fantastic week of the NFL. The NFL draft happened this past weekend. Man, it was unbelievable. We'll get to that shortly, but what a week and it's been. The weather has been awesome, quite honestly. We're in a couple days away from May. Summer's almost here. Like, how are we feeling about that?
I am feeling amazing, Hamza. The NFL draft, like you mentioned, was a hit for the NFL, and also our Dallas Cowboys, which we will get into in a moment or two. Before we get into the content of this video, and there's a lot of exciting stuff to talk about in this episode, just want to thank everyone for continuing to watching and listening on Spotify and YouTube. I ask you please smash that like button below and also hit that subscribe button. Our subscriber count has actually gone up in the last few days, weeks or so. So we appreciate everyone for watching and supporting this podcast. And man, we are in the post of this kind of off season now. OTA, rookie mini camps are about to be starting soon. I know we will get into the Ottawa Senators, my team, in a later episode. But today, Hamza, is all about the NFL draft, and in particular, we'll highlight our Dallas Cowboys. But man, what an exciting draft all around. I'm doing great. Just feeling amazing, man. It's an exciting time right now to be alive, and exciting time to be an NFL fan.
Have we mentioned that we finally hit over 100 subscribers on YouTube?
Yes, we have hit that mark now. We are at 100, I think, 8 subscribers on YouTube. Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a really big deal. So thank you for all of our people who do that.
Yeah. Before we get into the content, actually, I have a question for you.
Yes, what's
Have you ever heard of a yellow watermelon?
I actually have heard of a yellow watermelon, but I've never actually seen one.
I was watching a clip the other day. You know who Zias and Bilu is?
No, I don't even know what you just said.
You don't know who Zias and Bilu are?
Zias and Bilu, no.
The two guys with really funny laughs who make whatever. But yeah, he was eating a yellow watermelon. I've never seen that in my life. I've never seen that at any store.
I've heard of it.
I'm really curious. I really want to try what a yellow watermelon tastes like. I think it'd be sick. It looks like a pineapple, but it's a watermelon but yellow.
What's your favorite fruit of all time?
Watermelon.
Really? Mine's it has to be mango.
Yeah, of course it is.
What? What is that supposed to mean?
You know exactly what it means.
All right, back onto the content. Interesting take there on the yellow watermelon. I've never even... Yeah. Okay, cool. So we're going to move on here, Hamza, to this episode. And this NFL draft that just took place over the weekend. I'll let you go first, and then I'll kind of take it from there. What were your thoughts on the overall draft? What were you doing during the draft? And if you want, we can talk about our Cowboys to start, or we can end with our Cowboys. It's up to you. I'll let you drive the bus here.
Obviously, there's a lot of hype going into the draft. Every day felt more real, getting closer into the draft, and then the draft day finally happened. I was just watching the draft with a couple of my buddies. You were at the Ottawa Senators game, so we couldn't watch it together. But yeah, it was fun. First of all, Pittsburgh did a really good job the way it looked. I think it was very beautiful. I didn't realize how beautiful Pittsburgh actually is. It looked really nice. I will say, though, it was a very weird draft in a sense that, like, a lot of the picks were really unpredictable, except for out of the top 3, which I think it was pretty consensus.
Well, no, many people had Arvell Reese in the top 3.
Well, no, recently it was a lot of Jeremiah Love going to the Cardinals, but I feel like years prior, I was able to be like, yeah, these are probably going to be the top 8 picks from this to this to this. It kind of went like all over the place, even into the later rounds where players were dropping. People got picked a lot earlier than expected. Like, again, we're not NFL GMs. We're just fans. With some knowledge of the NFL draft, and we like to we gain our knowledge from NFL draft analysts. But even there, we're talking about a lot of the guys or people they were drafting a lot later, or even some of them went earlier. Like, it was a very weird draft in that sense. I don't know. That's kind of how I felt throughout the draft. I don't know about you.
Yeah, so as you highlighted in the beginning, I was actually at the Ottawa Senators game 3 here in Ottawa. So obviously, I was focusing on the NHL, the game happening on the ice, but I would get notifications on my phone about the different draft picks happening and kind of keeping tabs on, is Dallas going to trade up, who's getting picked, and I think I can start right now. I think the biggest shock for me was frankly Arvel Reese not going fourth overall to the Tennessee Titans. You can look at that need for Tennessee, and they needed a receiver to help develop Cam Ward into becoming a great NFL quarterback. But in my opinion, I think the best player at that moment was Arvel Reese, and I thought with Robert Saleh and Whitecon, that would be a pick for Tennessee to help kind of solidify their defense and have a cornerstone guy to kind of build around for a very long time. But they ended up picking Carnell Tate, receiver out of Iowa State, and I think that helped Dallas a lot in eventually getting the best player in the entire draft, which we will touch on a little bit later. We're going to have a whole segment on just the Cowboys. But yeah, that was I think the biggest surprise for me at first was that first pick, and then I think number 2 was Kansas City trading up to 6 overall and getting Mansour Delane. I thought Mansour was going to be a guy that in our mock drafts was going to be available at 10 for them, or excuse me, at 9. But yeah, the fact that they traded up to get him at that moment was a little bit of a surprise for me. But overall, it was a great draft. We watched day 2 together. Still some great players on the board in day 2, and guys that weren't getting picked till the rounds 3 and 4, like Jamal McCoy, who was the first pick in round 4. So there's definitely some surprises here and there overall. But man, just an exciting draft. And yeah, we'll let you. You want to start off with our first segment here where we do some grades, or I'll let you.
Yeah, for sure. I think. Yeah, we'll talk about what we think. We'll give teams like our favorite team, not our favorite teams, but like the drafts that we like from different teams. I guess I'll just go first. I really did like what the Cleveland Browns did. I think it was a smart idea, them trading back. I think they really have emphasized it a lot throughout the couple weeks that they wanted to trade back. They trade back with Kansas City, while giving them Mansour Delane. But they traded back and they drafted a really big need for the team, which is offensive tackle Spencer Fano, who we had him going pretty late in our mock, but it was kind of weird that how our mock went. We kind of just like the way the board fell, just it is what it is. But I did think Fano was going to be a top 15 pick. I didn't think he would. I did see mocks of him going earlier, but I definitely did think Francis Mauigoa was the better tackle. But Spencer Fano still pretty good, and then they draft Casey Concepcion in round 1, and then lucky enough they were able to get 2 studs in the second round, and Denzel Boston, who they get another wide receiver, and then one of my favorite players, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. Like, this guy falls completely out of the first round, goes into the late second like that, and they traded up to get him. I think they did a really good job addressing what they need. They did really well, just kind of building up this team and building up the future of this Browns team, with Shedeur, probably most likely being Shedeur, going to be the starting quarterback, and what they address the offensive line. They also drafted another guard in the later rounds, but I think getting the 2 wide receivers and addressing the offensive line and getting a stud like Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, I think that gives them a really good grade, and I think I'd probably give them an A- with what they did. And also, they drafted Taylon Green, the quarterback out of Arkansas, in the 6th round, which, again, I don't know what they're gonna do with him, but I just think it's pretty cool. But yeah, I think Cleveland did a pretty good job.
Yeah, so I think you'll go 3, and then I'll do 3. So we'll go back and forth here for our teams that kind of impressed us in many ways in this draft. And the first team that comes to mind rather in this draft was the New York Jets for me. I think they had a phenomenal first round, 2nd overall drafting David Bailey. Then they go. I have it right here, 16 overall drafting Kenyon Sadiq, and you've highlighted many times in our pre-draft mock drafts how dynamic this player is. He's literally another receiver, but also an offensive lineman in the sense that he can block at a very, very high level. An extremely athletic tight end, and I think he's a little bit better than Kyle Pitts was coming out of college, and that's saying a lot because Kyle Pitts was a great player coming out of Florida, but I think Kenyon Sadiq is that good. So you talk about Aaron Glenn and that defense. Well, now they go out there and help their offense and Kenyon Sadiq. And then ending up the first round, they trade back into the first, drafting Omar Cooper Jr., Fernando Mendoza's main wide receiver at the Indiana Hoosiers, the defending national champions. And we recently saw in the last couple of weeks leading up to this draft that Omar Cooper's draft stock kind of started to rise in many ways, just because of his athletic ability. He had a great combine and his impact of playing at a team that won a national championship. So that's all in the first round. They had a phenomenal first round, and you look at the trades that they've made in the past with Sauce Gardner and trading Quinnen Williams to Dallas. Those are big time players getting traded, but in return you're getting great value with these draft picks. And to finish out in the second round, D'Angelo Pons, a smaller DB from the University of Indiana who had a great national championship game. I just mentioned 20 seconds ago, he was definitely smaller, but I think also extremely underrated player, a guy who can go up and contest jump balls, has a little bit of difficulty in the deeper balls, but in terms of 20 yards and under, he's a great dynamic player, very similar to the head coach in Aaron Glenn. And then one interesting pick was in the fourth round. We were watching this together. They went Cade Klubnik, which I thought they were going to go Garrett Nussmeier, who actually didn't end up going to the seventh round, which was, interesting in many different ways. But they draft a quarterback that they can maybe develop and being their guy down the road. And Clemson's known for drafting or for developing great quarterbacks. And Cade is a good quarterback. I definitely would have thought maybe Garrett Nussmeier would have been above him. But overall, I think the Jets had a home run of a draft with those 3 first-round picks and then adding in day 2 and day 3. I'll give them an A flat just because of how well they did. And I think their rebuild is going to start to turn around a lot quicker than I think many people think.
Yeah, I think it's funny because before the season started, every early mock draft had Cade Klubnik going number 1 to the Jets before the season started. So Cade Klubnik is supposed to be the quarterback 1 in this class. Kind of crazy how the tables turn, but I think Jets definitely did a great job. Sticking in the AFC, not the AFC East, but in the AFC. No, they're not even the AFC. I'm sorry, that's so dumb. Going to the NFC. Talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. With their first round pick, they drafted Ruben Bain at 15, someone that was kind of a bit of a shocker, though he fell all the way to pick 15. I kind of had a bit of a feeling he would fall. Definitely not to 15, though, but I did have a feeling he would fall. I guess the arm length is really like a real thing, but I've watched a little bit of interviews and what Ruben Bain had to say. Like, this guy means all business. I think Tampa Bay definitely addressed that big need with their edge rusher, also getting a local, Florida guy. I think it's a big pick, especially getting at 15. This reminds me a little bit of when Jalen. I've said this guy so many times, but when Jalen Walker last year, he was projected to go in the top 8, and he fell all the way to 15. I think it's another home run pick for another team in the NFC, what other division, the South. Yep. So I think it's a pretty big pick. And then in the second round, they go Josiah Trotter, the son of Jeremiah Trotter, the Eagles legend linebacker. Josiah Trotter to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the second round. Then they go Ted Hurst, a wide receiver out of Georgia State, in the third round to kind of address their wide receiver need with Mike Evans leaving, and then probably with one of the most underrated pickups, who someone we wanted Dallas to pick up in the fourth round, and when he was there, Keontae Scott fell all the way to the fourth round. Big pickup there from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think they did a really good job addressing their needs. Overall, a really good draft. I think I would give it an A. Their biggest issue last year was the defense. Baker Mayfield was doing a great job on the offensive end, but they cannot get a stop on the defensive end. I think they did a really good job addressing their needs, and I think Tampa did a really good job. And that division is going to be very interesting this year. I think every team in that division got significantly better, so we'll see.
Yeah, no, it's a great pick. I think they had a very good draft in many different ways, like you just highlighted. For me, the second team that I thought had a great draft were the Atlanta Falcons, another team in the NFC. You're looking at their first pick was in the second round, and they picked up Avion Terrell, who we had mocked many times to go in the first round. And actually, in our first mock draft, we had him going 20 overall to the Dallas Cowboys. And just a great story for him, brother of course, AJ Terrell. And you can see the video, their draft reactions, just honestly super cool. And I can't remember if there ever was a brother duo in the secondary for any NFL team. I guess
It was Devin and Jason McCourty.
Yeah, you're right. I literally, as I said that, I remember those players. But yeah, that's a pretty cool story for them, and they got a dog. Indiana Falcons did. And number 2 is a guy that we also highlighted previously. And look at us, HnH Podcast, highlighting these big-time players. It was in the 3rd round, 16 overall. They picked Zachariah Branch. So he's staying in state. Obviously went to the University of Georgia, and he'll be playing for the Atlanta Falcons now. Just a dynamic receiver, a guy who can really spread a defense in many different ways, vertically, horizontally. Just a dynamic guy who can play also in the backfield as well. Just an added weapon there for Michael Penix in that offense. And actually, not even Michael Penix, I forgot Tua Tagovailoa, who we have seen many times fare very well with dynamic receivers, of course, with the Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. And then another pick what they had, which was in the 6th round, which, as I mentioned, we were talking about this player for a while, and maybe he's going to fall to Dallas in the 3rd. We were saying in the 3rd round pick. He was on our big board in the 3rd, and then when he didn't go in the 3rd, we're like, okay, maybe he can come to Dallas in the 4th, and then maybe in the 5th, and for some reason, Dallas wasn't picking him, and we're talking about Harold Perkins, linebacker out of LSU, and I know you're an LSU fan. You can talk about this a little bit better than I can, but I've seen his highlight tape. Obviously, he had some injury issues, and he was definitely much better, I think, 2 years ago. But he's still a dynamic linebacker, a guy who can play sideline to sideline, a physical guy who's not afraid to get to the quarterback, and you add him along with Walker that you just mentioned before, and it's a very scary defense that they already were last year, and they just added to that as well. So Avion Terrell and Perkins helping out that front, and of course, as I just mentioned, Zachariah Branch. So Atlanta Falcons, they had a great draft as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like Harold Perkins, like he's one of my favorite players in college. And just like the way he's played and the way he can play is dangerous for any defense to have. Like I just think the biggest issue with Perkins is nothing that he did wrong. Yeah, he had the injury, but he was still looking healthy. He was still fast. Like he had a great pro day as well. I just think the biggest issue is that the defensive coordinator for LSU, I forget his name, he just didn't know how to utilize him correctly. I think Harold Perkins can be used in various ways. He's a great linebacker. He's a great run stopper. Also, he's really good at the edge rusher position as well. I just didn't know why. I didn't know how. They couldn't have found a way to use him correctly. I just think the lack of production that Harold Perkins has, nothing has to do with him. I think it's just the way that the team used him. And I think who's the DC for Atlanta right now? Is it Raheem Morris? No. They got someone.
He used to be there. No, I can check right now for you. But keep talking.
But yeah, whoever the defensive coordinator for Atlanta Falcons is, I hope that they find a way to utilize Perkins the right way, because the talent that he has is
Jeff Albridge. Yeah, he got Dallas.
Yeah. So he stayed. So
his son was the one that
prank called Shedeur.
Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, that's funny. He's like Perkins is a great player. He is, as in terms of talent, like he's a first round, second round talent for sure. They just got to find a way to utilize him correctly, and they said on the draft call that you're too good of a player to be still lurking around here. So yeah, Atlanta's a great pick. And then with my last pick, I'm gonna go with a team that did very, very well in the draft, and it's kind of scary for other teams because we know how good this team can be. I'm talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. Man, did they hit almost on all their picks. It went majority of defense, which understandably they lost Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson. But to make up for it, they traded up to get Mansour Delane, the corner at LSU, our cornerback one and the consensus cornerback one in this class. I've talked a lot about Mansour Delane and how good he is. Great pick from Kansas City. He would instantly plug in and be their wide or corner one. Then in the second, and then their second first round pick, they went ahead and got Peter Woods, defensive tackle out of Clemson. Have Peter Woods and Chris Jones on that front. Man, I think that they can cause a lot of trouble. And then in the second round, they got someone who, yeah, we kind of knew he would go in the second round, but going to the Chiefs is kind of crazy. R. Mason Thomas, edge rusher out of Oklahoma, just another great player for Kansas City to take. R. Mason Thomas, projected earlier, if he did not get hurt in the regular season, was probably going to go in the first round, but still really solid, very good edge rusher for KC. And then who did they pick in the third round? I don't think they had a third. They did not have a third round pick, but they did take someone I liked in the fourth round. And then they drafted the safety out of Oregon, Jaden. How do you pronounce his name? Jaden Canadi or Jaden Kandai, whatever. Safety out of Oregon, who I also liked his tape. I thought he was really good and very versatile because they lost Brian Cook in the offseason. I think they kind of addressed the majority of their defensive needs. I don't think there's much they got to do on the offensive side. I think, again, it was a home run draft for the Kansas City Chiefs, and it's kind of crazy that the Chiefs were even had a position to be in the top 10 with their draft picks, because we know how good that offense is. So I think Kansas City's going to be another very dangerous team and back in the Super Bowl contention this season coming up.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And to close out my top three teams in the draft, I think this is a big rivalry for the Kansas City Chiefs in many different ways. I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens, Humzah. I think they had a very underrated but very good draft. With the first pick drafting, I'm not going to pronounce his first name, but Ione, the guard out of Penn State. Just a big-time body, not afraid to get hands on. Sorry. Not afraid to get hands on. Just a great interior offensive lineman for them. And then later on, in the first pick in the second round, they drafted Zion Young, a guy that I was really high on for an edge rusher. He was up there with the Malachi Lawrences, I believe, in that conversation for Dallas at 23. But just a great defensive player who's fast, edgy, and able to disrupt the quarterback in many different ways. And another rated part of these picks is there were two receivers, again in the third, and then in the fourth round with Jacoby Lane out of USC and then Elijah Surratt from Indiana. You talk about Surratt, who was Fernando Mendoza's teammate, so he has that pedigree of playing a national championship game. And Jacoby Lane, who I didn't know too much about a couple months ago, but doing a little bit more research the last couple weeks. He's a tall, lanky receiver who's not afraid to go up there and get the ball, but also has the ability to have that secondary speed when he gets past the secondary. And then closing out with another pick that kind of was interesting to me was Chandler Rivers, and we were together, as I mentioned, for the fourth time during day 3 of the draft, and I kept talking to you about Chandler Rivers potentially being a guy that Dallas can look at. Yeah, I understand we drafted Caleb Downs, who can play that nickel position, but if you put Chandler Rivers in that spot, and also he's a dynamic defensive back as well, I think it was a good pick overall for Baltimore. And so those are my teams. So I had the Jets, I had the Baltimore Ravens, and then I had the Atlanta Falcons, and Humzah had the who did you have again?
Kansas City Chiefs.
Kansas City Chiefs.
Browns, and then Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, so overall, I think many teams did a lot of really good things. And Humzah, before we get to our Dallas Cowboys, who I think were, taking bias aside, definitely one of the winners of the entire draft. Let me ask you this, Humzah. Were there any picks that surprised you? Were there any players that were like, why is he still here in day 3, late into day 3? Why was this player picked so early? I'll let you start, and I'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, I'll start off with the San Francisco 49ers first pick in the second round. They went with Dizon Stribling, wide receiver out of Ole Miss, and I was pretty shocked that he went, this early on, because I never saw any mocks of him going early. Was never really, I didn't really know much. I knew about him, but I didn't think he'd go this early, especially being the first pick in the second round. That kind of shocked me for sure. I think another one, which one I talked about earlier, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. Like, dude, this is a first round talent for sure. Someone that is super versatile safety. That I think will probably be one of the better safeties in this class. And then guy goes late in the second round, which is kind of crazy. Another one I'll point out is Garrett Nussmeier going all the way in the 7th round to the Kansas City Chiefs, and that one shocked me a lot. I think like how are guys like Drew Aller or Taylon Green or Cade Klubnik going before a guy like Garrett Nussmeier? Like that doesn't make any sense. Might just be a
Do you
bit
think some of
biased
it
there,
has to
but
do with his injury history?
it could be. But like I think he said he was healed now, and I just think as the quarterback that Nussmeier is and the level that he played even the year before the injury, it was he was still very elite. So I think those were the main ones that kind of shocked me for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I'm gonna go with Caleb Banks going to the Minnesota Vikings at 18 overall. That was, in many of our mock drafts, we had him going in the late first, sometimes even early second. And it's not necessarily, I'm not dissing the player because I think Caleb Banks can develop into being a good defensive lineman. And you look at the history of defensive linemen in Minnesota, they tend to do very well for their career. But I'm sure he's going to be a great player. But my biggest thing is, Dylan Thieneman was still on the board at the time, and he didn't go later till 25th overall to the Chicago Bears. And I thought that was a match made in heaven for Minnesota. You're talking about a dynamic safety in Dylan Thieneman who can learn from a guy like Harrison Smith.
Harrison Smith is gone.
Oh, he's gone. Yeah, where'd he go?
He's released, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, well then that would make it even more interesting why they didn't go Dylan Thieneman. They're a dynamic safety who we're just talking about. So that was one surprise pick for me. Another one will be a player, and I think I'm going to go with Malik Mohammed, a guy that we talked about many times before, a dynamic defensive back out of the University of Texas. And he went a lot later than I thought he was going to go. I believe he went in the 5th round to the Chicago Bears, actually. So they had Dylan Thieneman and Chicago in this draft, another success for them. But I just thought he could have had more value maybe in the 3rd or 4th round. Well, that's definitely a little bit surprised there. And let me ask you, Humza, I wasn't the biggest fan of this player just because of his injury, and I told you that I want Dallas to stay away from this individual because we are in a win-now mode. But were you shocked that Jamal McCoy was the first pick in the 4th round? Was that somewhere? Did you expect him to go earlier, or was that kind of like because of his injury, you figured that was the right spot for him?
I kind of knew he wouldn't go in the 1st round, for sure. But the talent that McCoy has, he's a top 10 talent. And the fact that he didn't go to the first pick in the 4th round, it's a bit crazy. I think teams are gonna, in a couple of years from now, they're gonna regret and be like, damn, like we missed out on a guy like Javon McCoy. Every team literally passed up on him. But you also mentioned before in the car on the way to the Senators game, you brought up a good point that the Raiders are a perfect team for a guy like McCoy because with his bone issue in his leg or knee, whatever, it's a good place for him to go because the Raiders are probably most likely not going to be in a win now mode, even though they did a really good job in free agency and they did a pretty good job in the draft. I think it's a good team for him to develop, but yeah, Jermon McCoy falling all the way to the 4th round is kind of crazy. Also, what player that we forgot about, Ty Simpson. He picked at pick 13 to the Rams. We all saw the Sean McVay phone call with him. Kind of feel bad for Ty Simpson, but that one definitely shocked me for sure. I think we had him going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I thought maybe he would go late first and the team would trade up to go get him, but yeah.
The reason why that also shocks me as well, not necessarily because the player, but you're looking at the Rams and they have Matthew Stafford and then maybe another year, maybe 2-year window to kind of win another Super Bowl. You would think to go out there and get a guy like Mekhi Lemon or go out there and trade for a dynamic player and going quarterback at that point is a little interesting. It's kind of giving the reverse effect of the Falcons when they had signed Kirk Cousins and when their first pick drafted Michael Penix. So,
that's crazy.
It's interesting. Teams do suck at drafting, and we'll interesting to see how that goes. But Hamza, enough about these teams. We've gone 29 minutes, and we haven't even talked about our Dallas Cowboys, who had a phenomenal draft, winning the draft, especially in day one, trading up to the 11th overall pick and drafting Caleb Downs, safety, hybrid, defense, nickel, all-star, defensive player out of Ohio State.
Hall of Famer.
Okay, it's chill. Calm down. Man, I'll let you go first. What were your thoughts on him falling where he fell?
Mhm.
Dallas trading up and getting him. Just excitement from our fan base, excitement for the team. You can already see in the pregame, in the press conferences, how he handles himself. He already looks like a future captain for the next 10 to 15 years. Shoddy loves him. Jerry Jones really hit a home run. Caleb Downs is the Dallas Cowboy. That is,
Yeah.
can't not believe that is what I'm saying right now. What
Mhm.
were your thoughts on that pick?
It's crazy because we had him. I had a feeling Downs would drop, for sure. But like I'm saying, he would drop out of the top 5. I thought Downs would go in the top 10. Thank you to the New York Giants. Honestly, thank you so much for letting Caleb Downs fall to us. And honestly, just unbelievable. It's crazy how they don't value the safety position as much as like
Sorry to
it
interrupt
doesn't
you.
make sense.
I- Sorry to interrupt you. Can you just imagine? They already picked Orville Reese, right? Which is a crazy player. Like he's gonna be a great player for them. But you brought up a very good point that they already have Thibodeau and Abdul Carter. They got too many players in that
And Burns.
position. It's good, and Burns. They got 4 guys. It's gonna be interesting to see what they do. But can you just imagine they drafted Orville Reese, which they did, and then drafted Caleb Downs at 10 overall, and Francis Marinoya. He might be a great player. Good for him. I think he's gonna be a good player. But you could have had the defense for the next 15 years solidify number 1 defense hands down,
Mhm.
and you didn't pick him.
I don't
And
know if we
he came to
can.
Dallas.
I
Not
don't know if
only
we
did you
can.
not pick him, but he came to the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Amazing.
It's like my reaction was. I don't know if you can. I don't know if you can show the video. Maybe I'll send it to you after. But people that saw my Instagram story the day after the draft, like you can see how excited I was to get Caleb Downs because honestly, it doesn't feel. Still to this day, like I feel weird because I'm so used to Dallas just taking like an offensive lineman or defensive tackle or like uh not a waste position, but like a position that like or player that's not like equivalent to like a Caleb Downs. Like CeeDee Lamb is the most recent one, but that was 6 years ago. It was such a long time ago. Like still to this day, like I feel I don't want to say uneasy, but it feels so different and weird that like Dallas was able to they actually didn't go with offensive lineman, they didn't go with a defensive tackle. Like they generally took the best player in the entire draft. Like it's unbelievable. Like Caleb Downs is genuinely the best player in the class. Only reason why he fell that far is because the positional value of the safety is not valued as much as other positions, which is understandably, like I understand. But dude, I remember when he was at Alabama. I remember people saying like, cause me and my buddy were talking about this before. Like I remember people saying like, yo, when it's Caleb Downs' year, like this guy's gonna go number 1. Yeah, like when Caleb Downs gets to NFL, he's gonna be the one. I remember people talking about that like 2 years ago when he was at Bama, like, and now that he's a Dallas Cowboy, like
A true freshman starting safety for Nick Saban's defense at Alabama. That says a lot. And people can think that we're glazing here, but look at the NFL reports, look at the grades. The Dallas Cowboys
look at
got
Malik Neighbors' reaction.
yeah. The Dallas Cowboys got the best player in this entire draft, and the impact that Caleb Downs is going to make on this defense is going to change it in many different ways. You're talking about a nickel guy, a guy who can play the nickel position and truly make everyone around him better in so many different ways. We heard Brian Schottenheimer talk about how he demands guys to get in the right position. He's not going to be the green dot, meaning he won't be calling plays, but he will get guys in the right position. And the biggest Achilles heel for the Dallas Cowboys defense for many years has been the lack of communication. How many times have we seen guys wide open and Malik Hooker and Donovan Wilson looking back like, what's happening? That will not be the case anymore with Caleb Downs. It's unbelievable. He's a Dallas Cowboy. His leadership already, you can already see it. And this is going to make the Dallas Cowboys, I think, have a significant jump into being a contender because we already saw what their offense can do, and adding a guy like Caleb Downs, it's unbelievable, man. I can't remember the last time we had a safety. Maybe Woodson was the last time we had a guy who's this good on the defensive side of the ball, but we grew up more with the Jeff Heath days when he would go out there and hit guys. But man, this guy, You talk about the nickel position. This is the guy you wanted to draft, and that was the first pick. And then comes with our second pick. We go out there and we get Malachi Lawrence with the trade with the Philadelphia Eagles. What were your thoughts on Malachi Lawrence? I know there was a couple people that had other edge rushers ahead of him, but I know you spoke really highly about Malachi. And so, can you tell us a little bit why you think he's going to be a good player for the Dallas Cowboys?
Yeah, just before I get to the Lawrence thing, I just want to ask you before. Are you happy with Downs being are you okay with him being a full-time nickel, or do you also want to see him drop back into as a safety as well?
If we didn't get Jalen Thompson and PJ Locke, I would say he has to play a little bit of both. But I'm fully confident in those two guys to play safety and Caleb Downs to play nickel. I think the nickel position is starting to take over the NFL a little bit. We saw the difference that position had in the Super Bowl. Good for pronouncing his name.
Devon Witherspoon?
Yeah, Witherspoon, sorry. And how much of a difference he had in that nickel position. And I would definitely keep him at nickel. We've seen the coverage issues as well, but in saying that, there's no harm in him also playing safety as well. And he can also play DB. He's that kind of player. He can literally play anywhere. He can play defensive end. He can play defensive end tomorrow. That's how good Caleb Downs is. But I want to hear your points on Malachi Lawrence, because I know you were really high.
Yeah, Malachi Lawrence, he was a bit of a late riser. Not many people really knew him because he went to UCF, and then he had an incredible combine. He ran a 4.5, 40-yard dash. He had one of the best 10-yard splits. He was super quick off the line. Definitely a late riser. I remember watching Malcolm Kuiper's mock drafts, had him going late, very early second round to the Titans. And just watching his tape and watching his film, he reminds me a lot of a guy who always destroys Dallas every time, no matter what team he plays for, just kills Dallas every time. He reminds me a lot of a guy like Josh Sweat, who you and I are not fan of, because this guy kills Dak every time we play Josh Sweat. He reminds me a lot of that. Just he fits the prototypical type of edge rusher that Dallas looks for. The size, the speed, the bend, the relentless hands, and the way he can finish at the quarterback is good. He had 7 sacks. He had about 11 tackles for loss. I think Malachi Lawrence I think he was a great pick. I know there was a couple edge rushers that you liked that you wish you had. Honestly, there's still one I kind of wish we had, but again, only time will tell. I'm just really happy we did not go with Kildrick Falk. That's honestly what happened. I was really nervous that we were going to go with Kildrick Falk. Just happy that we didn't. No disrespect to Kildrick Falk. I just don't think he would fit well with what Dallas is looking for. But yeah, overall, there's nothing for me to complain about with the Malachi Lawrence pick. Honestly, I think overall it was a great pick. I have 0 complaints about it.
Yeah, so for some of our viewers who are not aware of who the Cowboys drafted, I'm going to quickly go over that right now. So Cowboys had 7 picks this year. With the first pick, 11th overall, drafted, of course, Caleb Downs, safety out of Ohio State. With the 23rd overall pick, Dallas selected Malachi Lawrence, edge rusher out of UCF. With the third pick, so we had no second round pick, but with our first pick in the third round, the Dallas Cowboys selected Jayshawn Barham, linebacker, edge rusher, hybrid out of Michigan, and I'll let you talk about him in a second. In the fourth round, we drafted offensive tackle Drew Shelton. In the fourth round as well, we drafted defensive back, just 2 picks after, Devin Moore, DB out of Florida. We had 3 fourth-round picks, I'm sorry. With our the third pick in the fourth round, we drafted edge rusher / defensive tackle LT Overton. And to finish out our draft in the 7th round, we drafted Anthony Smith, wide receiver out of East Carolina. So 5 of those players I just mentioned to you are defensive players, which is pretty significant, I think, if you ask me, considering the Micah Parsons trade and all that stuff. So I want to hear from you and let you go first again. So we talked about Caleb Downs, we talked about Malachi Lawrence. Anyone from the other guys I mentioned that you were really happy with or interested in seeing develop, and maybe the kind of impact they'll have in Dallas for this year and also going forward?
Yeah, I really did like the Jayshawn Barham pick. I think it's a Arvell Reese prototype player that you're getting here. You're getting a guy who only this year really played the edge position. but was usually a full-time linebacker. He does have some, like, it's not even like the craziest problems, but sometimes with the lack of coverage as a linebacker. But again, I think that can all change. But the way he is as a linebacker, his straight down speed, the way he's able to stop the run, his physicality. The thing is, you're not asking this guy to be your linebacker one, because we also traded for, used our 5th-round pick to trade for another linebacker who we'll get into quickly. I think Barham, you would ideally on 3rd downs have him line up as an edge rusher. I think I really like the way that Dallas is moving with their players. The scheme fits that they're trying to run I think are going to be really good. I think Christian Parker, honestly, has been one of the biggest blessings to this Cowboys organization. I think he's done a great job. You can see the influence that he has in that draft room. I did really like the Jason Barham pick. With Drew Shelton, or do you want to talk about Barham, or do you just want me to?
Yeah, I was going to add on to you really quickly that, I think from a Cowboys fan perspective, and we're in many group chats, and they were kind of saying the same thing, is we have a little bit of PTSD drafting players out of Michigan. You look at Mozzie Smith, you look at Luke Schoonmaker, Taco Charlton. These guys coming out of Michigan haven't really panned out to be great players for Dallas. I think the last good player we had out of Michigan was Jordan Lewis back in 2017. So I think that kind of scared us a little bit, that why we obsessed with these Michigan players. But the tape doesn't lie. I think Humzah nailed it on the head. He's a hybrid, right? He can play edge rusher, but he can also be a linebacker. He can be a Mike linebacker, a true Mike linebacker, a green dot guy. And, you combine his athletic ability to stuff the run with a guy like DeMarvion Overshown and D. Winters. I think it bodes well for the Cowboys now, but also in the future as well. So I like that pick as well. And we won't go into each and every pick because we'll be here for another 4 hours. But I think overall, I liked what the Cowboys did. You mentioned it just now. Christian Parker has done a phenomenal job changing the culture of this defense. And I think at the end of the day, as Cowboy fans, we have to fully trust his ability to understand and identify these players like an LT Overton. I wasn't the biggest fan of him going into the draft prior to. I think he lacked a little bit of athletic ability, but Christian Parker sees something in him. He can play that defensive tackle position, and you look at Quinnen Williams, who was at Alabama, and Tyler Booker. So he's the team is starting to surround players with guys that they're familiar with, and with regards to school. And Devin Moore, he didn't allow a single penalty. He didn't have a single penalty, I think you mentioned to me last year. So, yeah, I'm excited. I think this Cowboys draft class is great. I think, we mentioned it before. The Cowboys have to hit in this draft class. They cannot afford to half-ass it and kind of not do well. They hit in this draft, and in large part due to Caleb Downs. I'm happy. I'm excited. Man, I need the game to happen right now. There has to be a game right now.
Yeah, I think overall, I think the Cowboys have significantly improved their roster, specifically the defensive side. Also, a player we did not talk about, someone that I loved in this entire draft process, who I had him mocked going in the 4th round to Dallas, who was an undrafted free agent who I was shocked. Michael Trigg, the tight end out of Baylor. Super, super happy with this signing. All of Cowboys Nation loves that signing. I think the team can see it. I think this is genuinely a guy who can honestly become our future tight end too. And it could be one of those stories like, damn, Michael Trigg went undrafted. Now he's a starting tight end for the Dallas Cowboys. That's how good Michael Trigg is. I genuinely think he's that good. The tape shows it too. I don't know how and why he went undrafted. But the tape shows it, man. His ability to run like a wide receiver, his ability to go up and get that jump balls. With the signing, honestly, it really does help open up the middle of the field on the offensive side. I think getting another wide receiver type tight end will just help open up this offense even more. And Brian Schottenheimer's smart enough to be able to figure out how to use a guy like Michael Trigg. And I'm calling it right now. You could say it. By the end of the season, he will be our tight end number 2, potentially even tight end number 1, but tight end number 2 for sure.
Yeah, I think with this draft pick, the writing's on the wall that Luke Schoonmaker is potentially going to see himself out of Dallas, whether via trade, or he might not even make their 53-man roster. We've heard many. I listened to every single press conference, and there's many times where Brian Schottenheimer, unprompted, meaning he's never asked a question, he brings up Brevin Spanford and his ability to run block, and he loves Brevin Spanford. You just paid Jake Ferguson. You locked him up for a few more years, so you're not trading him. The only outlier there is Luke Schoonmaker, who at that point I wasn't a big fan at all of that pick just because we just had Jake Ferguson. But yeah, I think Michael Trigg is going to be that replacement for him. And yeah, man, overall, I'm excited. This draft was great. Any final thoughts on the episode before we close it out?
No, I think I'm super excited for the regular season. I'm excited to watch, OTA clips. And
are we going to Brazil in week 4? Cowboys in Baltimore. Are we going?
You'll see us in Rio.
That'd be crazy. Before we close it out, guys, before Humzah closes it out, rather, thank you guys so much for watching, listening, and subscribing. We really do appreciate it. You guys have been amazing, and the comments on YouTube and Instagram are much appreciated. So we ask that you please continue that support. I think the biggest thing you guys can do for us is hit that smash button. Hit that like button, and subscribe, please, on YouTube. We really do appreciate it, and share it with your friends, family, and loved ones. Humzah, I will let you close it out. And before we do, there will be an Ottawa Senators podcast, working on a guest episode, just to talk about the very disappointing season that we had, and there's a lot to talk about. So there will be a Sens podcast out soon. But Humzah, you can close it up for us.
Anyways, yeah, guys, we appreciate all the support, and we'll see you guys next week.